Hi all, Heidi Roop here. I'm back, like a bad habit, and I get the privilege of moderating this next half an hour together. We have some incredible guests joining us to provide us with a quick lightning overview of tools to expedite climate action. And so leaning back into the first part of the day, of course, I led in with our urgency to act. And of course, that's easier said than done, as many of the conversations today have illuminated and the rich breakout discussion that I was just able to listen in on. So we're going to go quickly through. We have 4 lightning talks today, and I'm going to just invite the presenters to introduce yourselves and your topic, and then dive in, and you have your sort of 5 minutes. And hopefully, if we stay on schedule, we'll have an opportunity to engage in some discussion and answer some questions from the audience. So without further ado, I am going to pass it to Kristen Burrows to talk to us about increased climate action in your government operations today. Stories of success and inspiration. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. Okay, seeing my slides, thanks. Hi, everyone. So I'm assuming that you're probably feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all the information you've heard today so far, but maybe a little energized to get started on taking some climate action. So I'm Kristen Burrows. I'm one of the co-directors of the Minnesota GreenStep Cities and Tribal Nations programs, and I work out of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency St. Paul office. We can go to the next slide. So for those of you who aren't familiar with GreenStep, we are a voluntary challenge, assistance, and recognition program that helps communities achieve their sustainability and quality of life goals. It's free, it's voluntary for cities and tribal nations to join and participate in, and it's made by and for Minnesota communities. And I just did a little zoom in on our coastal communities so you could see who's participating. We have 144 communities. The program is a step program. So we have 5 steps total. The first one is for a community to sign a resolution committing to local sustainability. Steps 2 and 3 focus on implementing and reporting best practice actions, which I'll talk about a little bit further. And then steps 4 and 5 focus on reporting and improving metrics. But I'm going to dive deeper into the action, so you can go on the next slide. The GreenStep program includes 29 best practices under 5 categories of sustainability. Each best practice includes anywhere from 3 to 8 actions. So in total, there's 186 actions. Really, it's a menu. We don't expect any community to work on 186 actions, but it helps provide some ideas for communities to work on. You'll see 2 best practices that are highlighted. 6 and 29 explicitly include mention of climate-related actions. 29 specifically around adaptation and resiliency. But you'll find actions that reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve climate resiliency throughout all 29 best practices of the program. We also have a filter tool that can help narrow down climate actions further. So you can look at climate change education, for example, or policy and programs. And I can put some links in the chat. Next slide, please. This is a fuzzy screenshot of one of our best practice actions. So again, one of 186. And you'll see each action has 3 star levels, kind of a good, better, and best level of effort or guidance to kind of get you thinking about different ways to implement actions. Each action also has an advisor listed on there. So this is a technical expert who can really help you dive deeper, help you find those tools, help guide you along your path. Next slide. Under each action, you will also find implementation tools, the tab on the left there, and this includes anything and everything from additional guidance documents, reports, case studies, websites, all those things that might help you implement that action. And then my favorite part, At the bottom of each action, you'll see the who's doing it. And these are self-reported actions from cities and tribal nations participating in the program, with a short summary of an explanation on how they implemented that particular action, including their contact information. So you can follow up with them and ask them how it went. Altogether, communities participating in the program have reported over 4,700 actions on our website. So it's a great tool and resource to take a look at. And next slide, thanks. And there's lots more. Everyone's here to help you on your work moving forward. Anyone is welcome to join our free monthly workshop series on various sustainability, climate, and energy topics. You do not have to be a GreenStep city or tribal nation to participate. You do not even have to be a city or tribal nation to join us for those. And so I can add that link in the chat following up here. Visit our homepage, sign up for our newsletter, follow us on social media to hear the latest news and opportunities, including everyone's favorite funding, and or join a peer cohort to take a deeper dive into a topic, host an AmeriCorps member or an intern to help coordinate your work. Minnesota Green Corps host site applications are open right now. I'll just give a shout out. And then CERT's regional coordinators also provide one-on-one assistance. And final slide. Contact information is here, so feel free to reach out. Happy to connect you with our program or any of the resources within our program. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kristen. It's a treasure trove of information. So I encourage you all to carve some time in your calendars and jump in. And next for our lightning talk, we have Carol Andrews who's going to talk about watershed planning. Pass it to you, Carol. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Heidi. And I have a lot of slides, so I might just do this for change slides. So as Heidi said, I'm Carol Andrews, environmental engineer of the St. Louis County Public Works Department. For anyone not familiar with St. Louis County, it's big, stretching from just south of Duluth up to the Canadian border with 3,000 miles of county managed roads. When I think about what our department needs to do to increase climate resilience, I worry about rain. As others have mentioned this morning, our region has already witnessed extreme rain events leading to severe flooding, associated transportation system damage, and with repair costs running well into the millions. This slide lists several actions that can help increase road resiliency: upsizing stream crossings, adding floodplain culverts alongside bridges, so when a stream jumps its banks at a high rain event, the road crossing is less of a pinch point. In flat areas with roads surrounded by wetlands, like we have up north, it can help to add more cross culverts. And lastly, there's several ways to reduce the amount of water flowing to streams in the first place. St. Louis County has used most of these, including replacing an average of about 25 or more road crossings a year over public waters as part of our regular capital improvement program. But today I'm going to give examples of two projects with resiliency benefits that would not have happened without partnerships that grew out of, in our case, I think the watershed planning process. The first example project involved an old culvert under Morris Thomas Road in Duluth. This road was scheduled for pavement rehab. Next slide. A couple of years in advance of that pavement rehabilitation or repaving project, we inspected every culvert under that section of road, and our normal practice is to replace those that are at risk of failing during the life of the new pavement. And in this particular crossing that served Cane Creek, that old cast in place concrete culvert passed with flying culverts. So left to our own devices, we would have paved right over it. It's not that we don't care about the environment, but the problem is that we have limits of what we can spend our money on. Next slide. Yeah, so road and bridge funding has to be used for repair of roads and bridges. So here's an example concept of we work and we often make improvements to the stream, but our focus is on the road. Just like for restoration, somebody working on that like a DNR, they're focused on repairing the stream and can't do 2 miles of road repaving. But what if we work together? Close the road once, mobilize equipment once. It can save a lot of time and money and make projects possible that wouldn't otherwise happen. And this is where my presentation topic and title comes in, is that I learned that by showing up to watershed planning meetings, it's been a great way to not only for me and our county to better understand the problems in the watersheds, but also establish good connections with other participants. And just in case watershed planning is new to anybody, if you go to in Minnesota, if you go to the MPCA website, right there on the first page, you can, with a couple clicks, get into any watershed in the state. It's a really good resource. I'm sure Wisconsin has something similar. I think 2 more clicks. And in 2018, we started sharing our 5-year Thanks project plan with others that were involved with watershed planning, just for the idea of trying to do more information sharing. And what resulted from that was that the local SWCD, Soil and Water Conservation District, said, hey, we're doing some restoration projects at Keene Creek. Are you going to replace that culvert? We said, no, it doesn't really need it. And they said, well, what if we get a grant that paid for the culvert? And so that's what happened. And the project went really well. We did what we do best: design, permit, build, and they did what they do well. Helped with the restoration design, and that worked so well that we now have 2 more projects in the work for well over $900,000 of grant assistance from the DNR legacy grants. The second example project, which is actually go one more, thanks, in its infancy, would add treatment of what we're calling usually called green infrastructure type to this road, Woodland Avenue in Duluth again. Where we have just what was mainly a repaving project, but we asked the city when we realized that there's space available, or there is a park next door, if there's any chance of partnering with them to add treatment. They said yes. We talked to Jesse Martis at the Pollution Control Agency, who helped us identify grant sources. And so I just today actually received the grant back from the Army Corps. So it's getting close to done. And it's become really almost a 50-50 partnership with City of Duluth. Again, sort of us doing what falls best within our wheelhouse, and them looking at, well, what do you want in the park for that BMP to look like, to work together to do something that wouldn't have happened, I think, with either of us working alone. And also I want to note that when we're working on the application, I talked to Fond du Lac, DNR, others that were involved in watershed planning, and they were so quick to write letters of support explaining how this melded in with their work. So in conclusion, what I'm realizing is that implementing plans for climate resiliency is going to require pooling all our skills. And I'm happy to see this has become a real repeating mantra of the day. I do emphasize that, and I was going to say, and so when people are writing plans, make sure you ask people not just for input, but what might you do to help this plan. I say might because the person in the room might not hold the purse strings, but they can go back and push that question in their entity and come back and see what we can do to work together. And if you want to reach me, there's my contact information. Otherwise, if you go to the county website, Public Works Water Quality, this is a picture of me, which kind of ends up looking like Rudolph. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol. And a great segue there with the purse strings, because we're next going to pass this to Abby Finnis, who's going to talk to us about about improving your adaptation funding and finance success. So I know a hot topic for all of us. So perfect segue. Thank you so much, Abby.
Yeah, thank you, Heidi. So I'm Abby Finnis with the Great Plains Institute, and for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to pretend to know more about funding and financing strategies than I do. This presentation was originally put together by Michelle Vegan of Common Spark Consulting for the City of Duluth in supporting its climate action work plan. So next slide. Quick introduction, then I'll provide a very brief overview of the presentation, and then we'll walk through some of these funding strategies. Next slide. You can skip this one. Check out Common Spark. Michelle Vegan does really great work. So the different types of funding strategies that we'll walk through are looking at public capital, different taxes that can be utilized, utilities and rates, looking at private capital, and then the outlook for federal funding. And you can look at these in a couple of different buckets. One, how the financing strategies can impact public dollars and public infrastructure, as well as how they can be influenced, used to influence the private sector. So next slide. And then we'll skip that one too. We'll go through the funding strategies. So starting with public capital, I think this first one is really crucial and important, and it's looking at future proofing and reorienting existing investments. So what do your budgets look like? What do your capital improvement plans and programs look like? How can you rethink them so that you're thinking about climate resilience, you're thinking about mitigation, and put your dollars toward moving ahead with climate action within kind of your existing framework. You can also think about seeding revolving loan funds. The city of Duluth has started this, where you seed projects and then you utilize the cost savings from those projects to put back into the fund, and then continue to use those to continue to make progress on your city infrastructure work. So the next one is expanding city borrowing. So looking into different kinds of bonds that are specific to green projects, to climate projects, or resilience. And each of these have different nuances within them for requirements for the bonds, but it's something to look into as they're increasingly popular and are utilized to reduce risk in that borrowing as well. So next. Another thing to look at is, when you've kind of exhausted what you already have and you still need to increase your budget, using taxing powers to grow that budget and to dedicate those funds specifically for climate work. Use other fees that you have in place. You might have stormwater fees, and so adding a temporary fee to fund climate action can be another way to get those additional funds to drive that action. And hopefully it's temporary, and you've been able to share the successes on those projects and not have to have that for the long haul. You can also similarly do that on fuels. So depending on your relationship with your utility or the type of utility that you have, you may be able to add additional taxes on the consumption of some of those fuels. Next. Similarly, utilities and rates, you can kind of create a carbon market to leverage. This is kind of specific to Duluth and having municipal delivery of natural gas. And so adding that carbon or fuel tax onto that to be able to fund efficiency, to be able to fund electrification, and think through different ways that you can decarbonize the building stock within your community. But this could be something that you can consider applying to other services in your community. So guiding private investment in your community, this is thinking about where you might have input on inflection points. So thinking about point of sale, are there different ways that you can motivate energy improvements when a house transfers ownership? Can you have policies within your community that can influence the sustainable design of new buildings? So those are just a couple of examples of how you can influence private investment. We'll go to the next. I'm going to just zip through these. Similarly, you can share resources like the Property Assess Clean Energy and help to drive and finance private projects. There's another example in Ithaca, New York, where they are planning to decarbonize 1,000 buildings in 1,000 days, and they're partnering with Block Power. And together they've raised over 150 million in private investment to launch and implement this program. And so there's really innovative financing mechanisms out there that other cities have demonstrated. Creating an energy improvement district allows you to, dedicate development in your community that is under kind of a different guidelines to help promote the planning and development of energy-related development, sustainable development. Think about what those different things can exist in those kind of layover districts. Next. So Green Bank is another thing that we've seen a bit more on the East Coast, and it's likely to be funded at the federal level. Minnesota's also started talking about funding a Green Bank here, and this is just another way to access capital to be able to pay for some of these huge investments that we have, especially in resilience. And this kind of funding we'll be able to help really bring in that private capital to advance and accelerate our work on the local level. So I think there's one more slide. So the big opportunity right now is the funding that's going to flow from the federal government through the bipartisan infrastructure deal. And there is a lot of money both for resilience aspects, especially when it comes to stormwater and wastewater. And then there is a lot of funding available for mitigation through grid updates, through efficiency, clean energy, those types of things. And then we will keep our fingers crossed for additional climate funding pending the Senate decisions. So hopefully I did that quick enough, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Abby. And we'll hopefully have some time for questions too. And folks, as we go into our last presentation of our lightning talks, start thinking of your questions, and we'll you can add those to the chat, and we'll also hopefully have an opportunity for a hand raise or two for some questions. And so I'm going to pass it now to Peter Lindstrom to talk with us about 5 actions you can do now to incorporate clean energy solutions. And it's not Lissa, we have Peter here, contrary to the slide. Thank you,
Indeed,
Peter.
we were tag teaming a little bit on who was going to give this presentation, and I won. So good afternoon, everybody. 5 actions that you can take right now to incorporate clean energy solutions. Next slide, please. Starting with number 1, and I think really over the next 4 or 5 minutes here, I'm just going to hammer home a lot of the points that our previous speakers have made and encapsulated into just 5 steps that you can take, focusing on energy efficiency. Action number 1, always. And that starts with benchmarking. You can't manage what you don't measure, as the old saying goes. So there's some great tools out there to help local governments and tribes do this, including B3 benchmarking and Energy Star's Portfolio Manager, 2 really great tools. And through these tools, you can manage and measure your building's consumption over time and compare it to similar buildings across the state or even across the nation. Energy audits, can't forget about that. We've heard about that a few times today. Really critical for identifying those actions that you can take to be more energy efficient and what the return on investment will be for those improvements. Utilities oftentimes provide these service to customers, not always. And if they don't, there are great groups out there that do, and including in Minnesota, the RETAP, Minnesota Retiree Environmental Technical Assistance Program, or RETAP, RETAP. They provide free walk-through energy audits for local governments, for small businesses, and provide a great service. So retrofit, so you get the energy audit done, and what are you going to do? Some of those common retrofits are lighting, switching out to LEDs, occupancy sensors, HVAC, of course, building automation, and building envelope improvements, caulk sealing, looking at your windows, things of that nature. And a great place to find what programs or what sort of incentives may be available in your area is a website called Desire USA. So I encourage folks to check that out as well. Next slide. Action number 2, go renewable. And there are lots of great tools and resources for local governments and tribes to help them make this renewable journey. And of course, site selection is top of mind for many folks. And so in Minnesota, there's a Minnesota Solar Suitability app. And looking across the nation, folks use the Google Project Sunroof, really helpful tools for solar site selection. And then another one developed by NREL, a National Renewable Energy Lab, PV Watts, that can help estimate your renewable energy production and what the costs likely will be. And the clean energy resource teams, we have some additional great tools for folks to download today, including calculators that show your return on investment. We have a model request for proposals that cities and tribes can use. And some of these groups that I already mentioned, NREL, National Renewable Energy Lab, Rocky Mountain Institute, World Resources Institute, they have their own tools and resources that can be used today. And so they have model ordinances, they have collaborative procurement opportunities, they share a lot of success stories. And one website I'd point people to is cityrenewables.org. That's like a one-stop shop for a lot of these tools. Next slide. Action number 3, engage your residents. Green teams, super helpful in moving these projects along and really keeping a focus on sustainability. Engage your residents in bulk buy programs. Many local governments and tribes have bulk buy programs around renewables in particular, and bring in nonprofits to help facilitate these bulk buy programs for their residents. So one is called Solar United Neighbors, very successful. Another is the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. Both have bulk buy programs for residents that have shown great results. SoulSmart, this is a national program to help local governments adopt best practices in their ordinances, particularly around planning and zoning and permitting to be a solar friendly community. Bill clinics, also another great thing that local governments are doing. And hosting bill clinics where residents can bring in their bills and experts can help decipher those bills, and folks can receive really great guidance on how to be more energy efficient in their home. Next slide. And this one should say action number 4, electrify heating, because we're talking about air source heat pumps, cold climate air source heat pumps. Really, the more you can do to promote cold climate air source heat pumps, the better. You may be familiar with these. They work very much like air conditioners in the summer to cool, and work in reverse in the winter to help pull warmth from the outside to heat your buildings. And I'm told they're up to 3 times more energy efficient than forced air and electric resistance heating systems. And it's all part of this idea of beneficial electrification, where as the grid gets cleaner, we want to move away from fossil fuels. And another example of beneficial electrification is on the next slide, which is the 5th action that folks can take, which is building out the charging infrastructure, building out the public charging and adopting EVs for your own fleet, which we've heard a bit about today. And a great place to start there is to just get a really solid understanding of what kind of EV rates and support and incentives are provided through your utility company for EV charging. And there's some really good information out there on how to become an EV ready community. You can find it at a site called Drive Electric Minnesota, where you can find information on things like hosting a ride and drive, what vehicles are available on the market today, and what vehicle might be right for your fleet, public policies that encourage electric vehicle adaptation, and much, much more. And there's other sites out there that can be helpful as well to find out where the public charging is available. These are sites such as PlugShare, and another one is ChargeHub.com. PlugShare and ChargeHub, super helpful. And I think that's what I got for you.
Great.
And there's the contact information from my boss. Call her anytime.
Send all your questions, not to Peter. And in the interest of time, because I know the next section is going to be a rich opportunity to engage and provide some feedback, I'm going to just encourage everyone to please send your questions to the speakers themselves or pop them in the chat. And just want to say it was really inspiring to hear all of those things, so many themes around partnerships and collaborations and innovations and action now. As we seek to plan long-term, there's certainly tools, resources, and partnerships we can leverage today to continue on or start our climate action journey. So thank you so much to all our lightning speakers.